This is not a drill. The Supreme Court just handed a knockout blow to Planned Parenthood. And then the Pentagon confirmed it. Trump's strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities weren't just real, they were devastating. Roll the tape.
Hurry up.
Before we get into the heat, please like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss another truth bomb like this one.
The Supreme Court today issued a major ruling on abortion, deciding Planned Parenthood cannot sue the state of South Carolina over its efforts to defund it. It is a decision that could embolden other red states to make similar moves and cut Medicaid funding for clinics that provide abortion.
Common sense just scored a win in the Supreme Court. The ruling says if you're in a red state and you don't want your tax dollars funding abortion, guess what? You don't have to. And don't let the left twist this. No one said a woman can't get care. We're saying we're not paying for Planned Parenthood to be the middleman in a system that ends lives before they begin. And here's the kicker. Nearly 40% of abortions in this country are from black women. That's not health care. That's called devastation. And yet, Planned Parenthood has built their business model around it. This ruling tells states you don't have to be complicit. But the narrative warriors, they wasted no time spinning this.
Dr. Patel, so give us a sense of what this ruling means for Planned Parenthood clinics in South Carolina, and if this at all will curtail women's ability to get care in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, Alex, it does have a pretty widespread impact on care. Maybe just helpful to say that there are many states, including South Carolina, that have already banned kind of use of funds for reproductive health care, specifically abortion services. So this was not a debate about whether or not that federal funds or state funds could go to abortion services. That decision has been made clear. What's at issue here is that clinics like Planned Parenthood, the majority of their services are for health care, cancer screenings, prenatal care, all types of health care. And here in this decision was specifically the ability to carve out Planned Parenthood as an entity from receiving Medicaid funds. So in essence, it's not just saying no to abortion very specifically, which it has already done. It's basically limiting access to a majority of general health care services. And just as you point out, it's not just for South Carolina. This decision paves the way for other states like Texas, like Missouri, other states that have already said that funds could not be used for abortion services to expand that.
Oh, please. The majority of Planned Parenthood services don't fall for this talking point. Nobody banned cancer screenings and nobody banned prenatal vitamins. What we're talking about is if abortion is your business, we don't owe you a check. And if states want to say enough, they should have that power. Let's zoom out for a second. The right sees this as restoring authority to states, and the left, well, they see this as healthcare apocalypse. The difference? One side is thinking, and the other side is feeling. And when feelings run the show, you end up with headlines like civil rights hacked and healthcare gutted. And speaking of overreactions, Jasmine Crockett jumped in with a full meltdown. First, they came for abortion. Now it's birth control, cancer screenings, prenatal care. The Supreme Court just ruled states can block Medicaid patients from getting care at Planned Parenthood. Let's be real. This ain't about protecting life. It's about weaponizing poverty and race to strip away care, choice, and dignity from communities that dare to seek basic care in a system already built to fail them. Weaponizing poverty? That's rich coming from the side that turns poor communities into abortion hot zones. Let me ask you this. What do you call it when nearly 4 out of 10 abortions comes from one demographic? Because if that's not targeting, I don't know what is. Crockett says this isn't about protecting life. I'd argue that Planned Parenthood isn't about protecting life either, especially not in black communities. This isn't healthcare, it's strategy, and the strategy's broken. And while the outrage circus was in full swing, the Pentagon hit the podium with real facts.
There's been fawning coverage of a preliminary assessment. I've had a chance to read it. Every outlet has breathlessly reported on a preliminary assessment from DIA. I'm looking at it right now. Again, it was preliminary, a day and a half after the actual strike. when it admits itself in writing that it requires weeks to accumulate the necessary data to make such an assessment. It's preliminary. It points out that it's not been coordinated with the intelligence community at all. There's low confidence in this particular report. It says in the report there are gaps in the information. It says in the report multiple linchpin assumptions are what this assessment, a linchpin assumption, you know what that is? That means your entire premise is predicated on a linchpin. If you're wrong, everything else is wrong. And yet, and still, this report acknowledges it's likely severe damage. Again, this is preliminary, but leaked because someone had an agenda to try to muddy the waters and make it look like this historic strike wasn't successful. I'm going to get to the chairman in a moment because he's going to lay out the particulars for you based on his professional military experience. But here's what other folks are saying. The DIA that put that report out says that this is a preliminary low-confidence report and will continue to be refined as additional intelligence becomes available.
Here's the part CNN didn't want you to hear. The Pentagon confirmed Trump's strike hit hard. Enrichment capability gone. Centrifuges crushed. Key conversion facilities wiped out. And yet, CNN ran with a preliminary, low-confidence memo and then spun it into Trump's strike failed. That's not journalism. That's sabotage. Don't just take my word for it. Bill O'Reilly called it exactly what it is.
CNN used 4 anonymous sources to try to diminish the bombing rate, what they do. But even worse was the news outlets that picked it up as fact. So anonymous sources are easy. You can get anybody to say anything. And when I read the article, I said, how do these anonymous sources know? There's nobody on the ground there. There's nobody who went under the mountain to see. The Iranians can't even do that because the mountain may collapse on them. There's absolutely no primary source reporting on the damage that the American planes caused. None. So you got 4 anonymous people saying, well, I might have heard this, I might have heard that. It's absurd. No competent journalistic editor would have printed that article. But since CNN is in business to make Trump look bad, as you said, every moment of every day, they throw it out there. But I think we all know that the journalism industry in America and the world is at the lowest ebb, the lowest point in the history of that industry is right now.
He's right. CNN didn't have one person on the ground, not in Iran, not in Israel, not even in the air. They just cobbled together 4 nameless sources and then pushed it as fact. Meanwhile, the Pentagon told you directly the strike was effective. So who do you trust, the generals or the anonymous rumor mill? And just in case you needed more confirmation, here's what the analysts are saying.
The objective being Iran can never have a nuclear weapon and its enrichment program has to be completely destroyed. I think from what I've seen, the 20,000 centrifuges, you had about 17,000 in Natanz, about 3,000 in Fordo, they are all completely destroyed. I am very confident those centrifuges are gone. Isfahan, which is the conversion facility, key part of the fuel cycle, also appears to have been destroyed. So if you add it up from what we're seeing, massive catastrophic setback for Iran's program. The term of art, obliterated, destroyed, I kind of step out of that. This is an analytical process. It's important for the professionals now in the intelligence community to be able to do their work without political pressure and come out with their assessments. And we'll know soon enough. There's a lot of work going on here.
The word obliterated keeps coming up. Not slightly damaged, not reduced, obliterated. But still, the left wants to play semantics. If Iran's programs are paused, isn't that a win? If it's obliterated, that's a miracle. But either way, Trump got it done. Even Lindsey Graham had to admit it.
Obliterated is a good word for me to use. I can tell people in South Carolina, nobody is going to work in these 3 sites anytime soon. They're not going to get into them anytime soon. Their operational capability was obliterated. So there's nobody working there tonight. It was highly effective. No further strikes? There's no reason to hit those sites anytime soon. None.
When Lindsey Graham says no one's going to work there tonight, you know it's real. because he's usually halfway to another war before the dust settles. But this time, the strike worked. It hit what it needed to hit, and it bought us time. But that didn't stop the media meltdown. Tammy Duckworth took it nuclear.
And if anything, this attack and what Trump has done is only going to unite our adversaries like North Korea, Russia, the PRC to come to help Iran. And if you were Iranian leadership, what this taught you was they better get nuclear weapons very quickly, because look at how Trump treats countries that have nuclear weapons like North Korea, right? He goes and he pals around with dictators, and then he kowtows to Russia. So if you were Iranian leadership, the lesson learned is we better actually speed up and try to get nuclear weapons as quickly as possible. He's actually accomplished the opposite of what we're trying to do.
This is what's wrong with D.C. You've got a sitting U.S. senator literally encouraging Iran to go nuclear. She'd rather Iran get a bomb than give Trump credit for stopping one. That's not politics. That's sickness. And then they tried to take Pete Hegseth down over pronouns.
Acknowledge the female pilots that also participated in this mission. The early messages that you sent out only congratulated the boys.
So when I say something like our boys and bombers, see, this is the kind of thing the press does, right? Of course, the chairman mentioned a female bomber pilot. That's fantastic. She's fantastic. She's a hero. I want more female bomber pilots. I hope the men and women of our country sign up to do such brave and audacious things. But when you spin it as, because I say our boys and bombers as a common phrase, I'll keep saying things like that, whether they're men or women. I'm very proud of that female pilot, just like I'm very proud of those male pilots. And I don't care if it's a male or a female in that cockpit, and the American people don't care. But it's the obsession with race and gender in this department that's changed priorities. We don't do that anymore. We don't play your little games.
Imagine watching a successful military operation, and your takeaway is, why didn't you say female pilot? The left is obsessed with identity check boxes. But real Americans, we care about the mission, not the gender of who pulled it off. Respect is earned in the cockpit, not handed out on cable news. Meanwhile, Congress debated whether to block future strikes like this, but Fetterman surprisingly got it right.
Resolution, which will come up tomorrow night, we will vote now.
Well, I'll say this. I love that man, and he's coming in from a very principled side. But I'm going to vote no on that, simply because I would never want to restrict any future president, Republican or Democrat, to do this kind of a military kind of exercise that was very successful.
You know things are getting wild when Fetterman's making more sense than Schumer. He said it straight. Don't tie a future president's hands. When you pull off a hit like this, you don't punish the method, you study it. But of course, the usual suspects can't help themselves.
And Trump said that the nuclear stockpile was completely and totally obliterated. I did not receive an adequate answer to that question. What was clear is that there was no coherent strategy, no end game, no plan, no detailed plan on how Iran does not attain a nuclear weapon.
Knowing what you know now, would you have authorized it? Knowing what you know now, if the president had come to Congress to get approval to authorize this mission, would he have had your vote?
No. Ultimately, the only way to truly constrain Iran's nuclear program is diplomacy. You cannot bomb knowledge out of existence. No matter how many scientists you kill, there are still people in Iran who know how to work centrifuges.
No plan. So the most precise airstrike of the decade, confirmed by the Pentagon, was just winging it. You know what? Spare me. Diplomacy works when backed by power, not when you're begging terrorists to sit at the table while they're spinning uranium. The bottom line is, Trump cut the cord on Planned Parenthood and shattered Iran's nuclear program. This week wasn't just policy, it was a reckoning. The left wanted chaos, but Trump delivered clarity. The courts said Planned Parenthood isn't owed your money. The Pentagon confirmed Iran's nukes aren't coming back anytime soon. And the media, They said whatever their donors told them to. Let's have a moment of reflection. I want to hear your thoughts. Should states have a right to pull funding from abortion providers? Did Trump's strikes reduce or escalate the nuclear threat? Why is the media so allergic to saying Trump was right? How should we respond when U.S. senators side with our enemies? What role does identity politics play in distracting from real victories? Thanks for watching, people. Don't forget, like, subscribe, and share with somebody who needs to hear this. I appreciate y'all. God bless. Listen.